What's up, guys? My name's Marcos Garcia. Today on Conversations with One Percenters, we have Randy Hyden. Randy, appreciate you for coming on today and sharing. You're going to share your story and dive deep, and I'm ready for that.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it myself.
Let's go. So, Randy, we have a ritual how we start this podcast. Basically, you're going to ask the first question for our next guest. What would you like to ask?
I think it's always a good thing to reflect upon myself. Let's throw this one out to the next person. What are you most grateful for today?
What are you most grateful for today? That's good because I don't think people really ask themselves that question enough. Like, what are you most grateful for? So it's a very good question. And our question for you from our last guest is, what's one thing you wish you knew 10 years ago?
Excuse my cough. Hope that didn't blow anybody's speakers out. Oh gosh, there is a long list of stuff, but I think really at the core of it is that how much my insecurities have blocked me from reaching my potential.
And can you dive more deep on that?
Yeah, so listeners here don't know what we just talked about and stuff. So my biggest achievement so far in my life has been able to stay consistently sober for 17 years. Right. Why that's such a big deal? Because up until I was 43 years old, well, between sixth grade when I first got high to 43 years old, I got high as much as I possibly could. Okay. And it worked for a while. A lot of fun and stuff. But it didn't. And I didn't know anything better. And I kept it up. And it just perpetually was in a downward spiral. Eventually I got so miserable, it was either basically ending my life or making some dramatic changes. So, getting sober has been a huge, huge accomplishment. And not to dispute that, but basically I just understood that I was avoiding my insecurities, if that makes sense. Okay. So probably an easy example might be for someone, because you don't need to be an addict or alcoholic to need to get a few drinks into you to walk up to a pretty girl and ask her to dance or ask her out for a date, kind of commonly referred to as liquid courage. Okay. And my perspective, again, not saying that everybody does this, but the booze helped me get past some insecurities to do something that I wanted to do. Does that make any sense?
No, it does make sense. I'm following you because I used to be the liquid courage guy where I needed a few beers to go talk to the girl to then get her number to because I couldn't do it sober. I'm not gonna lie. I would be at a bar and I would be like, okay, I need another drink before I even go up to talk to this girl. And sometimes I would even take the drink and still not go talk to them.
Right. Again, there's so many different contexts of it, and I'm just trying to frame and stuff where it goes a little bit deeper and such, because I had no self-confidence and no self-respect, and I grew up in a household that was very perfectionist. I don't know if that's really the right word. My dad had very high standards for myself and was very demanding. Never cut me any slack. There was no mercy. There was no tolerance of being less than meeting his standards and such. And at an early age, it's impossible to meet his standards. I give up. I'm going to piss you off when I try, and I'm going to piss you off when I don't try. So why even try? I know it kind of sounds messed up as I say these words and stuff, but it made a lot of sense to, I don't know, I was probably 7, 8 years old when I just said this and stuff. And it was kind of a way of coping with my inabilities to meet the expectations of others, or the ones that I adopted from my dad as well, too. Again, I just didn't like myself. I could not meet my standards. And being able to disconnect my head to calm those thoughts and the feelings that are intertwined with them, that was great relief, because I had put a lot of pressure on myself. My dad had a lot of pressure on me, and I adopted it and such. And yeah, if you can kind of imagine that if you're always going through life insecure, thinking you're less than others, well, I will add it in stuff. A lot of times also I would be an egomaniac thinking I was superior to others. to try to offset that void of insecurity, if that makes sense.
Yes. No.
My greatest fear in life was being a loser, because my dad kept telling me I was a loser and I'm going to do everything in my life to prove you otherwise. It's just, frankly, my standards were different than his and stuff. But if that makes sense, I was always trying to prove to myself first and foremost, and then to others, that I wasn't a loser. And so insecurities really drove my addictions, if that makes sense. Now, I did not come to this awareness, though, and then got sober. This took 7 to 10 years. I don't know exactly. It was a slow, gradual process where eventually I realized, oh my God, it has always been this subconscious drive to prove myself that has been causing me to do these foolish acts that were really more driven by emotion than they were by logic. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then again, if you look at the behavior of someone who is in an addictive lifestyle, or a self-destructive lifestyle is probably a better description of that, you see them doing foolish stuff all the time. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's not logical. Why would somebody be doing that? Because they're driven more by their emotions, their feelings, more so than cognitive ability to discern what best serves them and what would be harmful.
Can I ask, if I can, what you started when you were 6 years old?
Getting high? Well,
was that weed? Was that like marijuana?
I had a beer was in first grade. My dad gave me a beer. My mom and dad would go bowling every week, and they put me in the nursery, which was basically infants and toddlers. So, I didn't want to be. There was no kids to play with, no activities for me and stuff. Didn't want to be there. So instead, okay, if I hung out with them, I'd want to kind of do things that, they weren't really crazy about playing pinball games or whatever that was in the bowling alley. Not really necessarily mischievous stuff, but mom and dad wanted to bowl. They didn't want to watch what I was doing. So my dad got this great idea. If I buy you a beer, will you just sit here and behave? And it seemed like a good idea. Sure, I'll have a beer, Dad. And I liked it. So I did it as he asked. I just sat there, babied a beer for whatever and stuff. And, that was a long time ago. I know it changed how I felt. I wouldn't say I necessarily got drunk at 6 years old. But no, it about puberty, it was 6th grade. I still remember getting high for the first time. I smoked pot with Mike Calhoun at the back of the school and stuff. But from there, I said out loud, I am going to get high every chance I can. This is great. And I did. It just happened to be it was easier when I was that age to get a joint than it was to get a beer.
That's very, very interesting. I want to dive deeper because I can't say I relate 100%, but I did hit. I work in the industry. I work at a bar. I see everything that goes on. I see the ups and downs and the cycles that people take whenever they're drinking, whenever they're doing drugs. And it can be painful both to watch and to experience yourself. I've experienced my own downfall, if that makes sense, where I pretty much self-destructed my whole business and my life. And it came from an ex-girlfriend that I lived with. She had kind of like a cycle where she was going up and down and she was doing drugs and stuff like that. And I was like, I couldn't really figure out why she was going down that path. And I'd even after telling myself I'm not going to go down that path, I still went down that path. It was weird. Like I despised it. Like I was like, I'm not going to go down that path. And next thing you know, I find myself going down that path. I didn't know if it had to do with my environment or things like that. So for you were doing it for, you said 40 years?
Well, I got sober at 43. So call it 30 years.
30 years? What, like, for doing it that long, how were you able to escape it? Because most people say this is like if you're doing it that long and you're addicted, it's the unescapable, like it's hard to escape. Does that make sense?
Oh, certainly is. Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, how you came to the mindset to not only change, but then also like the mindset that actually helped you change?
Well, the day that I had a bit of a moment of clarity, I was at work. I worked in the motorcycle industry for 38 years. And it was a team building exercise. And we went around the conference table, who do you admire most in this world? And then what characteristic do they possess that you wish you had more of? And I named my friend Eric. Eric is very disciplined. He is a 3rd-degree black belt. He's a certified master tech in many brands of automobiles and stuff. Eric is basically the guy that if he puts his mind to it, he can do it. So I think it was the characteristic was commitment. I said, well, the rest of that afternoon, it was like, so what am I going to commit to? Am I going to commit to my career, my marriage, my health, my education? Everything that crossed my mind, I couldn't do because I got blacked out. I would drink till I blacked out every night. So it's like, I can't do this because of my drinking. And it was just like, yeah, anything that you possibly can desire to get out of life. Getting wasted, again, to the point because I was so miserable, I had no problem knowing that I was going to black out tonight. That's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to disconnect my head and those feelings. But yeah, I couldn't do anything I aspired to do because of my drinking. Now, I remember telling my wife this while I was drinking, and she laughed and went, so I hadn't blacked out yet. But she goes, you dumbass, you're drunk right now, kind of stuff, which I can understand because I had probably said all kinds of things in blackouts and stuff. But she was pretty fed up with how I was living. And I'd been doing this we'd been married for about 5 years. And yeah.
So you just, not to cut you off, but you said you were going to change when you were in a blacked out moment. Like,
well, again, I was getting drunk.
You're drinking whenever you said, which is interesting.
Because you're not like kind of, I'm sorry, I'm talking over you. What are you asking?
No, you're good. Which is interesting because the moment of my change, when I said I was going to change, I was actually drunk. Yeah. Like I was out with friends, and luckily I met a girl named Sarah. Her name's Sarah. We made a bet, but she was sober at the time. I was drunk, and she had just was like a week sober. She made the New Year's resolution she wasn't going to drink, and we were out the next week. She was with us, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna join you. I'm not gonna drink, and if I drink, I'm gonna pay you let's make this $500 bet." But during that moment of like change, I was literally drunk. Like I wasn't blacked out, but I was drunk, having fun. I'm like, okay, we're gonna change, and I changed.
Yeah. Do you think that was because your inhibitions were lower?
No, I've been wanting to change. I'm not gonna lie.
But you've been wanting, but that was a point now where your head may not have been having the same type of resistance of all the reasons why you shouldn't change, but intuitively, the deeper, I don't know if drive's the right word, because drive is trying to move away from pain, being drawn towards your higher self, your potential. Do you think that having the booze in you lowered your inhibitions to dismiss any of your resistance and just go with the flow with where your spirit was guiding you?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to say I don't really know. But I'm glad I was in that moment, or whatever moment that like shifted the change. I think the only thing that really helped me stay accountable was that I did not want to lose. Sarah and me had made the same bet, and I was like, I am not going to lose this bet. And it didn't even have to do anything with the $500. I just didn't want like her. I didn't want to have to go to her and be like, okay, I drink, and then now like I'm the loser and she's over here not drinking, and I'm like, I'm gonna regret it so much that she did not drink and I drunk. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So for me, it was more of like I didn't want to like it was letting down myself. If I drank again, I was gonna let down myself, and that was something that was really gonna eat at me. Like I was gonna be a complete utter failure.
Yeah. A lot of times people will reference pride as being detrimental, and it can be. But yeah, in your case there, Marcos and stuff, pride served you.
Back to your story, though. I'm sorry to cut you off.
But anyway, so I did not have a like moment of clarity, is just stop drinking kind of thing. I don't know how many days after that, but I just started going to AA meetings because I have friends that had gotten, sober through AA. And kind of the thing with pride is like, hey, look, if they can do it, I can do it too. And actually it was more arrogance when I went to the meetings because I heard people talking about how they'd been doing it for years and going to meetings for years. And I'm like, you losers and stuff. I'm going to figure this thing out in like 60 days. I just wanted to stop being miserable, get it back into control. I'll figure this out in 60 days and I'll be gone. I'm not like you people. Yep. Well, in less than 60 days, I relapsed. So started realizing that these people were not necessarily wrong, that perhaps there was things that I should be reconsidering about myself and my relationship to life in general. So it's been a process that's, basically one surrender after another. Humility of life showing me that I don't have it all figured out. I don't really know myself as well as I think I do. Very much like the Buddhists talk about having a teachable mind, or the student's mind. I've had to do that not out of virtue, but out of circumstance. Because if I go back to my arrogance and attitude that I get it all figured out and I know it all, it literally would probably kill me.
Damn. So I want to dive deep. I want to dive deep, if only if you want to.
Sure.
What because I'm sure you had like drinking and stuff like that, and getting high and stuff like that. It probably caused a lot of conflict within your life. Maybe it was your career, your job, your family, your relationship, things like that. What would you say was like the biggest like causes of this? And like maybe like not causes of that, but the cause and effect. Cause meaning you drank, you got high. Effect meaning it might have had an effect. The reason why I asked this is because I work in the industry, and in long term, I would like to see everyone in the industry become sober, not drink, not do anything like that. And I feel like sharing this kind of information and someone like that watching can possibly change them.
Well, so again, the cause now, and I would have never known it while I was drinking. If I never went through this process of introspection and stuff, I wouldn't have understood at the root of all this was the insecurities. But I touched on it a little bit here. I'll go into a little. This, I believe Freud came up with this explanation, but humans are just basically wired for the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of pleasure, the avoidance of emotional pain and the pursuit of pleasure. Again, I've been referencing Buddhism. Again, Buddhism, aversions and attachments. So when we're pursuing what we want to pursue in a obsessive, addictive way, that would be clinging or addiction. And it does not necessarily need to be something as obvious as drinking or drugs. Certainly, we live in a culture and such where there are workaholics, okay? And that is not really frowned upon, not by most people. And when I say most people, though, it doesn't need much explanation that I have people that have missed out on the opportunity of seeing their kids grow up and have gone through divorces because they were so focused, so driven on a career and making money that they neglected other parts of their life that was, in retrospect, something they regretted. Okay, and I got sober in South Orange County, okay, around Corona del Mar, Newport Beach, San Juan Capistrano, and stuff. There was some very, very wealthy, very successful people, millionaires, in those meetings, and I've heard it shared more than once, guys, that Like, yeah, it didn't seem like it was a big deal and stuff. But here I am, like at 50 years old, I'm realizing if I could do anything over again, I wouldn't have worked, 80, 100 hours a week. I certainly could have had a good life working 40, 50 hours. So there are people that are again, they're associated with the financial success is a lot of pleasure. Okay. And kind of coming back to the ego type of thing. Yeah, it feels good when you're kicking ass and stuff like that. So it serves you for a while until it doesn't. Same kind of thing like with my drinking, my partying. I've played in bands since I was 21. Okay, going out to bars and stuff. It is a lot of fun to be in the guy on the stage that people are cheering for and all that kind of stuff. They're buying drinks for you afterwards. Girls, as I talk about having a few drinks to ask girls out and stuff, yeah, I really never had any self-confidence for that. It was great when girls came up and started talking with me. It was a lot of fun for about 15 years. And I didn't realize, because this was, again, it was so compelling for me to perpetuate and stuff. Everybody else was starting to get their act together and do adult things. And I was still basically living the lifestyle of a, guy in his his 20 years old. I was renting a room for a friend, pile of dirty clothes in the corner, all that kind of stuff. Rationalizing and justifying all my behaviors and stuff, living paycheck to paycheck and stuff. Yeah, it was so delusional and stuff. But yeah, it was more pleasurable to do that than take responsibility. So a lot of the stuff that I was living for was for immediate gratification, this immediate pleasure that is versus the long-term satisfaction that I'm striving for, looking, more at the big picture kind of stuff. Will this serve me in a much more sustainable way than again, the immediate dopamine fix? But yeah, people want to feel good. Again, that's what that whole industry, the service industry, everybody comes into that bar, whatever it looks like is unique to them, but they all want to feel good. Is that right?
I would say that's right. No, and I can relate to your story when you were talking about it. Like, it's all fun. When I got into the service industry, it's all fun. It really is. Like, you're drinking, you're partying, you're hanging out with friends, you're meeting new people. You got music, entertainment. It's like boom, boom, boom. And no, you can really get sucked in very fast.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily just in the bar or the nightclub or wherever you're going and partying and stuff. We have all kinds of things that we find pleasurable and desirable, and takes us away from some of the stuff that we find just as drudgery might be the best word that comes to mind here and stuff. Some people play video games. Some people might spend time reading books or whatever it is. People go to movies and stuff. This escapism from being away from the things that they don't like in life is part of the human condition. It does not necessarily make you bad. But again, when it comes to a point where it's self-destructive, and very likely also, harmful to those around you, that's when it starts becoming problematic. And typically, it's not until you say, enough's enough. I don't want to play video games for 12 hours after work and stuff because I can't get up for work next day and stuff. I'm calling in sick because I played video games all night. I can't do this. And then you try to stop and you can't. So there's a saying that pops around in the recovery world. It's like, I didn't realize I was addicted until I tried to stop. So I think that's kind of the big differentiator. As I said, there was people around me that for whatever reason, typically they got married, had kids and stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I can't be playing in a band anymore. I got responsibilities. I got to take care of my family and stuff, I'll hook up with you, some guys in the future and stuff, but I got to take care of what's important to me right now. There were other people like myself, and again, I wasn't alone in this, who just said, I don't want a family. I don't want a responsibility. I want to have fun, which again is like the mentality of a 22-year-old kid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's interesting. So we talked about we've been in some of the same groups and stuff like that. I'm curious, what do you help people do? Because I know you help people.
Well, so the Easier Ways community is something that's been much more, I don't know how to say, casual about it. It hasn't involved any type of formal structure. I haven't been charging people for doing, but I'm going to be launching this month to do it more specifically. But basically, what it's trying to do is introduce the same principles that allowed me to turn my life around, from going from a guy who was miserable, burned out, hated himself, to, again, the guy you're talking to right now. The tagline is recovering the joy of living. So hopefully what I've shared up until this point over the last 25 minutes has helped you see, that life sucked. Life was shitty. I hated myself, to being a guy that's grateful to be alive and has some purpose and meaning in his life. So going through the framework similar to those that go through recovery, using the same principles of honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, courage. But ultimately, the 12-step is about being of service, trying to help people that are suffering like you once did. You're paying it forward. And that very much allows you to see several things. One, that all the problems that you went through and that you hated yourself for, there's actually something beneficial on the other side. So it's real easy to think, at least, well, it was easy for me, was to go, I pissed away my life. 43 years old until I got sober. Yeah, I've got some stuff that I could say I did and all this kind of stuff, but I was nowhere near my potential over the last 17 years. And it was kind of a pebble in my shoe. It's like I wasted my life type of thing. Well, to understand that all that stuff can help another soul who's also gone through similar, in their own unique ways, that helps me understand that, it's not necessarily all good, all bad, that there's balance to pretty much everything in life if you pause. But there is also being of service, does have a really kind of a tangible effect. I have this hypothesis that most people, as I said, are driven by insecurities, or their self-destructive behavior is driven by insecurities. And probably the most common insecurity is, I am not enough. Okay. And if we can understand that our inherent dignity as a human being is enough. Okay. We don't have to be the coolest guy in the room. We don't have to be the smartest, the wealthiest, whatever we find that we're being drawn to, that would establish that all of a sudden now we're worthy of respect and of love. There's just an inherent, and basically just be yourself, relax. You have gifts, you have talents, you have assets, you have liabilities. Just kind of, again, some people I think come to this innately and have emotionally healthy people around them. And then there's a lot of people who don't, again, like myself. So a lot of people would never, ever necessarily go to the meetings of like a recovery 12-step program. And a 12-step extends way beyond drinking. There's a 12-step program for basically everything. Wikipedia shows 40 different maladies people have. As I mentioned, workaholism. Now, again, that's probably not going to be for most people understanding that that's something that they would need to modify or even eliminate because it's so socially acceptable. But if for those that realize that, that I am so driven to succeed that I will, I don't know, step on the backs of others or whatever it may be, and I don't want to live this way anymore, there probably isn't a 12-step meeting for workaholics, and there's probably not some guy at your workplace that, again, if you're a high-performing 1% kind of person, there's probably no one in your peer circle that's going to go, I've been there. I've done that too. Everybody's about being the best they possibly can and achieving stuff, which again is not bad in its own right until it becomes something that you recognize you want to stop. Did that make sense?
It does.
So long answer to, I want to help people recover the joy of living when their behaviors were not to the point where they hated themselves for doing this stuff. And they seem to have been, again, it seems to be beyond their control. Well, I can't stop doing this. I have to do this. That's an addiction, whatever it may be. Does
And
that
so
make
you
sense?
said you're going to launch this in the next few weeks or month.
Yeah. So I've got to talk to my coach about exactly the methodology of doing this. The Easier Ways community has about 800 people in it. I have another one that I started earlier than that called Attitude of Gratitude that has about 1,800. But I have enough people that I can start marketing this, and we share enough of the same values that we can start collaborating and working on things. But just helping people, I call it using your wisdom to find the work of your life. So there are certainly a lot of people in this world that they know who they are, they know what they want to bring forth, and they're committed to doing it. And they can do this in a healthy way. And then there are plenty of people that, again, as we've been talking about predominantly, that are driven by the avoidance of pain. But there seems to be somewhere in the middle of this. There's people that, I know there's something more to life, and I want to make an impact. I want to make a positive impact. And this is usually that midlife crisis kind of thing, where people start saying, who am I? What is the meaning of life? What I want to bring forth. To help people get clear on the causes and conditions that have brought them to this point, but get clarity on what their highest values are, and then live a life that's congruent with it. It's once you can, Simon Sinek calls it, your why. If anybody's ever watched that TED Talk, there's been millions of people done it, is when we understand why we're here today and why we're alive, it's a really easy filter to run our decision-making through. Is this in alignment with the person I choose to be? And frankly, at least for myself, if I have to think about this longer than about 10 seconds, I know I'm trying to bullshit myself. It's like, it's really just a yes or no question. Like this podcast, accepting this invitation to talk with you. Is this in alignment with what I want to bring forth in my life? Yes. It was an easy yes. Okay. And if I had to think about it for too long, Marco and stuff, then I could default and say, no, I'm sorry, this isn't right for me. So there's a long list of things every day that I can process through, but in the name of easier ways, things are easier when you know who you are and what you're here to do, who to spend time with, who not to spend time with. It doesn't mean that everything's easy now, because certainly as life goes on, if it got too easy, it'd be too boring. And
true.
As we've have a shared coach mentor in John Whiting and stuff, new levels, new devils. One of his metaphors is if you're a professional football player and you were playing with like 7-year-old kids, playing football with 7-year-old kids, it might be kind of fun how easy it was to run into the end zone 1 or 2 times, but eventually you're like, this is lame. What am I doing this? No, I want to play against other pro athletes, everybody who is striving their best to play this game, and yeah, it's really hard and you're making huge sacrifices, but I'm going to, when I show up on that field and stuff, I'm giving it 100%. That, for some people, that's really, really important. I have this hypothesis, and everybody in their own unique way, when they find something they're very passionate about and makes them come alive and it can bring them into a flow state, that's their game day. And every day can be game day.
Mm-hmm.
So helping people, again, just figure out what's important to them, and then having a network of people that allows them to gather the skill sets to improve their skills to be able to do this. If you want to be an entrepreneur, okay, great. It's a lot harder than it seems at first glance. What do you need to learn to bring forth your program, your coaching program? Well, you're going to have to talk with some people that know what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to probably burn out pretty darn fast. So having a network of people that, I know a few little things because I've taken coaching classes, but I know enough to know how little I know. So it would be simple enough to say, I'd like to learn how to be an online entrepreneur. I'd introduce them to John Whiting. That'd be my first guess. May not be right for them at all. That's their decision, their life. But if I can help people get clear on what they want to do in life and then show them the means of actualizing it, not just talking and thinking about it, because that's just wishful thinking. That's just daydreaming. Life is so much better when we're really in the game.
No, that's very true. And you mentioned something earlier, just a few minutes ago, especially about when it comes to like actually changing. when you actually want to make the decision to change and you're actually trying to make the changes, you start to realize, man, I'm so far behind. I've lost this many years of my life or months or days. And you start seeing other people and you're like, man, they're so far ahead of me. I can't get to that. Like, not that I can't get to that level. You're just not looking at, like, you just want to be there quicker. Like, you want that change to be quicker. Does that make sense? Like,
sure. Again, that's
so no,
another
what I'm
thing
saying is
that
I
you
can
have to
relate.
learn.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I know a lot of people probably think that same thing. They've tried to change. They want to change. What would you say? I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this. Is like alcohol addiction, drug addiction, is it people say it's a disease that can't be changed by themselves? And before you answer, I'm going to just say we're no medical experts and this is not medical advice. Do not listen to us. But I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Well, yeah. So the American Medical Association, the people that are smart enough to know whether it's a disease or not, does proclaim addiction as a legitimate disease. Okay. I have a different metabolism. I metabolize alcohol differently than people that are non-alcoholic. And that is just my condition. It would be similar to a diabetic. Is there a way to treat diabetes? Yes. You will always have it though. Okay. And there's plenty of people that have diabetes that have very full, very meaningful lives. Same thing with alcohol and stuff. So again, it's the abstinence that is the most obvious thing. It's like, well, yeah, if I don't have that first drink, then I'm not going to get drunk. Where it gets to be a challenge, and again, why needing help, is to understand that the disease of alcoholism or addiction is a two-part disease. There's the physical dependence, and then there is the mental component. There is the obsession. Okay. And basically, when you're talking to somebody who's trying to stay sober and can't do it, it's because that, again, it's more that they're driven by the emotions than they are by the logic. So I feel this way and I don't want to feel this way. And the only solution I know is getting high. So even if cognitively I can say, this is a stupid decision, I am not going to do it. And the next thing you know, a few hours later, you are.
That was me.
Because the feelings are more powerful. Anybody that's been involved with the sales, and I have been, and such, we understand that we will use our logical mind to rationalize our decisions, but all decisions at the root of them are more emotionally driven than they are logical.
Mine was always that I wanted to celebrate something. That's how I would get started, because I would stop for a while. I would be like, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do, I don't know if you ever heard of 75 Hard by Andy Frisella. Not a little advertising for him. But I tried that. I was like, okay, I'm going to do 75 Hard. I'm going to quit for 75 days. I didn't actually complete the 75-day challenge, but I did quit alcohol for 75 days. I made it. And I was a big accomplishment. And then I just blundered the whole thing. It was like a couple weeks before October, Halloween. And I'm like, you know what? I quit drinking for 75 days. I can drink today. And then that one day spiraled another, just drinking again. And one thing that someone told me is if you break a little, you're going to break a lot. And it was very true in my life. Very, very true.
Yeah. So the thing is, again, I've been talking about it, again, avoiding pain, but again, that's the pursuit of pleasure. Again, you celebrate. I mean, in general, when you use the word celebration, that's synonymous with fun, okay? For whatever the reason, whatever the occasion, let's have some fun. And we call that celebration and stuff. So, yeah, it does not always need to be that your dog died, that you're decided to go back to this old behavior. Yeah, many times it's just like, yeah, if I have a few drinks, this is going to be better. And who doesn't want to feel better? Again, these are very, very human things. It just happens to be when feeling better turns into, again, having unintended consequences. And the immediate thing would be a hangover. But what about, because I got drunk this one time, my partner in life decided no more. And this was really important to me. I love this person. I want to spend at least more time with them. I didn't say we were going to get married, but I don't want this relationship to break, to end. So, but again, when it, as you said, when it really breaks, then all of a sudden we can get into this, even though it may not necessarily be cognitive. Again, there's the conscious mind and the subconscious, unconscious. Unconscious will always override your conscious mind, but we can get into self-pity. So again, life does not go our way that we're expecting it should be. I've worked hard. I should have this. Or I shouldn't have this. The shouldn'ts, these expectations can really mess with our heads. But again, back to rationalizing and justifying, I'll show them kind of stuff. Forget it all kind of thing. I'm going to do this or that. But we can real easily slip into ways that, again, it's obvious to others, and even in moments of clarity, we can see how it's self-destructive, it's harmful, it's something we would prefer not to do. But the unconscious, subconscious mind, those thoughts that are ingrained at a very early age, are way, way more influential than anybody will ever know until you take the time to learn about human behavior. Behavioral science is a really, really important topic. I really think every human should spend some time to do things like, well, again, I'm talking about John Whiting, those that are seeing, the 500 charges behind Marcos and stuff. John very much talks about human behavior. And when we know better, we will do better. Because that's another thing of behavioral science and stuff. We are typically going to do what we see in that moment that's going to serve us best. Now, again, it might be getting high, maybe doing foolish things, but at that moment, quote unquote, it seems like a good idea. Okay. And again, what's driving that more so is thinking that is in our unconscious mind.
Yeah, I'm curious. Let's stay on this topic right here. What's driving them? Why? I'm curious because I never could understand this. For people that I knew, I'm not going to mention any names, but people I knew in the past that would do drugs, do alcohol, and they kept doing it, and then the life's getting destroyed. Maybe they're losing their money, they lost their job, they lost their relationship, and they keep doing it. Why do you? You might have the answer for this. Why do you think people keep going even though the destructions are happening?
Okay, so I've been talking about it more, so I'm going to have to better answer your question. Again, kind of go into it and touch on another aspect. So, and this is, if anybody's interested in really learning from a master and stuff, John Whiting explains it really, really well. But so say like in my life, again, how my dad was perpetually telling me I'm a loser.
Okay.
And I can't really tell you every day he did this. I'm 60 years old. It would be very cloudy for me to really accurately describe those moments that I do remember and such. That's my cognitive mind. But deep down inside, the most important man in my life was berating me and telling me how I had no common sense and I was a loser and all this kind of stuff. That made its impact upon me. That was in my thinking. Now, we talk about stuffing stuff down, a lot, again, especially us being guys will stuff their feelings down and stuff. But there's emotional charges with every thought. So when we're not just necessarily trying to stuff the emotions, again, we're trying to calm our thinking. Might be better, again, rationalizing, justifying, trying to make up stories and stuff where, I've referenced asking the girl for a date or to dance and stuff, how people will come back and it's like, she wasn't really that pretty at all. She was really a bitch. I didn't want to be with her at all and all this kind of stuff. Again, we kind of rationalize and justify when things don't go our way. Well, again, all this kind of stuff doesn't really go anywhere unless we do the inner work. Dr. Carl Jung was very much about integration, psychology and stuff. Some people may have heard of shadow work and stuff, but it's making the unconscious conscious, bringing this type of stuff to the forefront. And processing in a way where those thoughts and those feelings are neutralized, so they've lost their power. Okay, so why I can so freely talk about something that was so impactful in my life and basically something I was ashamed of is because, yeah, I've neutralized the charges of my father berating me all the time and doing all these foolish things that were a self-fulfilling prophecy. These things are part of my story, but they don't have the same level of
impact,
influence might be on there. So what? This is a long answer here. Why do people do stuff? Because there's stuff deep down in them that they're trying to offset, counterbalance. If I feel shitty, I want to feel good. Okay. And even to some point, how some people will say things are going too good. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Again, there is a natural order of things where it's called the law of polarity. You remember that in the teachings, Marcus?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's in Hermetic's law, but it's just a self-evident law. There must be a comparative or something to compare against for it to be known. Yep. So there must be a hot for there to be a cold. Okay. Again, if you only had one specific temperature, it'd be irrelevant. So you have to have something contrasting to this. Might be an easier way to talk about, or there must be a positive for there to be a negative. There must be a good for there to be a bad and stuff. We must compare this and stuff. And of course, bad is bad. Evil is evil. We want to avoid that stuff. And it almost becomes to the point where, again, it's so powerful with us to avoid the evil that actually it's incredibly influential, if that makes sense. And again, it becomes a determinative, again, as I use the word self-fulfilling prophecy, is like, yeah, the more I'm thinking about this is more the area of my focus. And even though my thinking may be to avoid it, I'm still thinking about I don't want to do this, if that makes sense. Again, it's an obsessive type of thing. So the drugs and alcohol really are a symptom of a much deeper problem. I call that problem the disease of perception. And perception is how I'm understanding things. It's going through my filters of my previous life experiences that it is bad to be a certain way. No, not necessarily. That's just how I see things, and I was influenced upon previous life experiences and confirmation bias, evidence that was proving that to be true. That it's my truth. This is my reality. Okay. Racism might be a great way to kind of show this. If a person has somehow in the course of their formative years concluded that a certain race other than theirs is inferior, okay, probably friends and family telling them that this nationality is, I don't know, whatever stereotype and stuff. And then we'll find confirmation bias of it and stuff. That is basically just the filter they're going to look through things through. And they may see someone of that nationality and they get to know them and they go, hey, you know what? All in all, you're a good person and stuff. But they have that filter that all, I don't know, say all Mexican people are, I don't know, whatever characteristic you assume and stuff. And then you get to know somebody and it's like, well, that person isn't the way I presume them to be. But you might still hang on. It's like, but they're the exception. But in general, again, we're looking at the world through a pair of glasses, a certain way of filtering all our information through. Again, this is the biases we have. And we all have biases. This is the human condition. Doesn't make these things bad. You can't get rid of them. Once you kind of realize that this is just the way things are, okay, then just be aware of them. And then again, there's a process to neutralize them. So when you start seeing yourself going back into a way of certain of thoughts and feelings and behaviors that you prefer not to, again, cognitively, I don't want to be this way, whatever it may be, you can look at it with a discernment. You're much more responsive than reactive, if that makes sense. Triggers are reactive. It does. Responses are a delayed response to whatever stimulus is triggering the thought.
And for those people who don't know, you mentioned John Whiting, and you're basically talking about a charge, like for instance, if you got punched in the face by someone and you really despised it, that would be like a 10 charge. But then you're going to figure out how to neutralize that charge to where, like, okay, I got punched in the face, but like, you're basically taking accountability for how it could be your fault so you could solve the problem.
Yeah. So using that metaphor and stuff with a neutral charge and stuff, there again, getting punched in the face provokes me to think of fight or flight. Okay, so somebody punches you in the face, you are either going to fight them or you're going to get the hell out of the room. Okay, neutralizing charges allows you to discern what's really truly going on. So again, you're not triggered and you're not going to just freak out and do something that afterwards you're just like, why did I do that? Again, it was much more emotionally charged
You're
than
not going to react.
coming. Yeah, again, the reactions, these triggers and stuff that you go into doing something that later you regret. It's like, say that you did get into a fight and you won that fight, but you went to jail because you just beat that guy silly. Okay. Yeah. Afterwards, just like, yeah, I probably shouldn't, maybe it was appropriate to punch the guy once or twice, but when he was down, I shouldn't have kept punching him, kind of thing. But
can you take the audience back and kind of show them how that, like, remember when you told me that your dad, did he say you were stupid, or what did you tell me earlier your dad said?
Well, he said I had no common sense. So
can you relate it to that and how that affected you, like, moving forward?
Well, so kind of in the thing in regards to a fight, it wouldn't necessarily need to be a physical altercation and stuff. Hey, I have been in many more verbal altercations than I've been in physical ones. So just defending myself in a way that basically proves that I'm right and you're wrong, kind of stuff, as opposed to right now in this stuff, I can discern whether it's important to really pursue this discussion. I guess, a fine example for that would be is if anybody's cruising around on Facebook, you see somebody has an opinion, and these are all opinions, even as much as they might be proposed as facts, but you disagree with that post. And you decide that you've got to get now into a thread of arguments proving your point to somebody, when, frankly, when it's not that important, you can just kind of understand it's like, what am I doing here? Why do I have to prove myself right on this post? All in all, I'm probably not going to sway this person's opinion anyway on whatever the topic may be. Now, again, it's easy enough to talk about in social media and stuff as the example, but it could be you and I talking if we've been having this conversation, Marcos, and I want to assert myself and really make my point, and you kind of want to do the same thing. If it's an emotionally charged discussion, that can lead to yelling and all kinds of stuff, and maybe a physical altercation, where if there is very little emotions involved with it, you can kind of catch yourself before it gets out of hand. You can just kind of go, hey, dude, maybe we could just agree to disagree, because, yeah, I can see that nothing's going to come out of this that I want to seek. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, so I keep on asking, does this make sense? One, in our conversation, but two, because I know for the listener around here, I'm kind of speaking to them as well, because we're going off into some deep waters here. These are things that most people don't talk about. So I appreciate you asking these questions.
Oh, no, I appreciate you answering them too. And if I ask a question that you're not comfortable answering, feel free to let me know, because not trying to offend or anything like that.
No offense taken.
So you're big into personal development now. I'm curious the mindset that you have now versus what you had back then. The mindset that is helping you remain sober versus the one that you had when you were drinking. Has that changed? I know it's changed, because you wouldn't be able to be sober with the same mindset. But how has that changed?
Well, so as I talked about again, how I was miserable all the time and such. That's an easy thing to say. Yeah, all in all, I'm grateful for the life I have. I'm grateful for having a second chance. I'm grateful for so many things. I could probably take 10, 15 minutes right now talking about my appreciation and stuff. But deeper down underneath that, where the mindset changed and stuff, why I was miserable so much is because I wanted to control people, places, and things to meet my expectations. Okay? As I talked about earlier, the shoulds and should nots. And in all frankness, I really couldn't control anything. Okay? So when things didn't go my way, when I thought it should be different, I would blame you. Again, I'd like to be right. Okay? I hate being wrong. Okay? So I was you haven't caught this yet, I had a victim mentality. Okay. When things didn't go my way, it's somebody else's fault. Okay. Things went my way. Yeah, I'm happy to take credit for it. I worked for this and all that kind of stuff. My mentality now is to understand. It really kind of comes back to stoicism in this case. If anybody's ever studied stoicism and stuff, I focus on the things that I have some control on, have some influence on, which, since we've been talking about minds and mindsets and all this kind of stuff, one has to be is where I focus my attention. Am I going to entertain things that are, I don't know, angry, bitter, resentful, regrets, all these kind of things? Those thoughts can just pop up. There is, even though I've done a lot of work, there is still stuff in my unconscious that can just come up. There can be things that stimulate a thought. And do I entertain that thought? Do I keep thinking about the time I would have done it differently? Okay. That kind of stuff can be quite a slippery slope and can lead to the point of where I am back into a self-pity point. And why even try? I'm just a loser. Forget it all. I'm just going to go get wasted. It is a real easy thing that I've done many, many times until I got really serious about it. And I guess that's the other thing as well, is the opposite of having that victim mindset is being fully committed to doing life. Half measures availed us nothing. That's one of the mantras that is read pretty much every AA meetings. It's like in the preamble and stuff. But John talks about it in his program. It's a basis for being successful in business and stuff. You have to fully commit to doing whatever you're going to do. And this is why I find it's important to know what makes you come alive. Again, your highest values, what's really important to you, because then it's a lot easier. If you're really into this, it's not hard being all into stuff that you're all into. And then you can kind of tie together the stuff that you're not, because you can see how it serves your bigger goal and your purpose. But yeah, again, in all those words mean, it's like I'm no longer a victim. I can have some say in my life, and also I can discern on the stuff that I have really no say on. In regards, I've touched on politics, or again, Facebook and all this kind of stuff. Things like politics, I don't care what's going on in the world, and I can vote and stuff. But after that day I cast my ballot, I have no say on what any politician is going to vote for in their position. The president of the United States is going to do presidential things. And inevitably, even if it was my guy, he's going to do stuff I don't agree with.
Yep.
Okay? Am I going to get tweaked because some person that probably wouldn't even shake my hand, let alone really care what is important to me, other than unless it was a photo opportunity and stuff? Am I going to get obsessed about that? Or am I going to focus on what's right here in front of me? Those people that I spend every day with. How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better coworker? That to me is much more valuable, again, in my highest values, than, again, thinking about, again, not just politics, but pop stars, pop culture, and all that kind of stuff, which, again, none of that's right. If that's your thing, if politics is your thing, if you want to follow celebrities around and all that kind of stuff, right on. But if it becomes a point where it starts distracting you from dealing with your own life, and again, the individual recognizes it and says, yeah, I don't want to spend so much time reading about politics. I don't want to doom scroll on here and all this stuff and look at all this stuff about how bad the world is and all that kind of stuff. And then you find that you can't stop. Then again, I want to be able to help people realize that there is a choice. They are not powerless over this. You can change, even though it seems, again, you've tried to change over and over all on your own. If you really truly desire the change in your life, it's not me who has all the answers. There are plenty of people there. But if I could have a conversation with someone, hold the mirror up long enough for them to see, is like, yeah, I am able to do something about this. Even though I may have been getting wasted every day for 30 years, when it comes down to it, and again, going to AA meetings, I could see, even though it was from an egotistical profile, I could see how there was other people that had found a solution to something I could not solve on my own. And if I really wanted to solve this problem, I better pay attention to what these guys have done to solve this problem. Okay? So again, we're guys here in this room, probably guys listening to this and stuff. Guys do not like to accept help. there's this weird paradox. There is strength in surrender. And maybe the hardest thing, well, might be saying I'm sorry or I'm wrong, but coincides with that and stuff is saying, can you please help me? And then genuinely accepting the help, not just doing it out of, I don't know, some kind of obligation, but to really sincerely, to have the humility to ask for help and listen for help and do the things that you find to the best of your ability that suggestion could have potential of changing your situation. Yeah, these are all self-evident truths. This is how all kinds of people, all kinds of states of life, I don't care what your economic status is, there are people that have broken the cycle of violence in their life. There are people that have been in terrible relationships over the course of their life. They eventually get to the point where they start looking at the problems not outside of them, it's within them, and they wind up having healthy, loving relationships. People financially irresponsible that wind up having financial responsibility and having a lifestyle that is congruent with responsibility with your money. All kinds of things that you could say, well, this is just the way I am. Yeah, again, there is some nature, some of our personality, our character we're born with. But I think a lot of it has to do with nurture. Again, you grow up in an environment during your developmental years that very much form how you see yourself in the world around you. And again, there's a very real thing called cognitive bias. Again, nobody likes being wrong. And you will seek out information that will keep reassuring you that the world is a certain way as you saw it at 7 years old. That's the way the scientists say it, is we build our identity and our worldview by the time we're 7.
Damn.
It's crazy because, yeah, I don't care who you are. You could be the smartest kid in the world. 7 years old, you've got such an incomplete understanding of who you are and how the world works and stuff. But again, kind of my whole thing of my dad was putting me in, trying to use reverse psychology and stuff to try to get me to show him otherwise, that he didn't realize the full implications was eventually that because he was so harsh that I just gave up on trying. Because again, I did try. When you said, don't give up, you're not weak, you want to play on the football team and stuff, just practice harder and do all this kind of stuff. Well, there was physical limitations. Okay. All in all, bigger kid than some, but not as coordinated as others and stuff. And it just, again, I just didn't have as much value. Again, I wanted to meet my dad's expectations and the peer pressure. Again, the popular kids played, on the sports and stuff, but I didn't have the physical coordination to do it. And eventually, again, my dad just kept on saying, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And when I couldn't, it's too hard, I can't. That's when it was the beginning of why even try? And that apathy of, again, this is just how I am. All the associated thoughts of this, again, talking about the misery, the anger, the blame, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's easy enough to get into this vicious downward spiral. And because it's been going on for a long, long time, think that that's never going to change. But not just my life, but there are millions and millions of people in recovery that prove that change is not just possible. It is very, very real. If you're willing to, again, you're willing to commit and do it in one day at a time. You can't fool around with this. You've got to be, again, your best when you're new, your first week sober versus being 17 years sober is different, but you're still giving it the best shot you can. And give yourself a little kindness, compassion when you don't meet your personal expectations. I should have been different. I shouldn't have done this or whatever. Understand you're learning to be a new version of you. Having friends around you that can love and support you when you can't love and support yourself. These are the basics of things that people turn their lives around. And I want others to at least consider the possibility. They get to take it from there.
That was powerful. That was very, 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 very powerful. I'm curious, did you have a belief that you set for yourself? Because like Muhammad Ali right behind me, he set beliefs on what he wanted to achieve. Like he said he was the greatest before he was the greatest. Back when I was drinking, I had a belief that basically alcohol wasn't bad. That was my belief because I did it. Then when I wanted to change my belief, I started following people like John Whiting, Sam Ovens, and stuff like that. And they were telling me like your beliefs are going to determine everything in your whole life. Belief, actions, result, feedback. And so I was like, okay, what belief am I telling myself about alcohol? And I didn't really know the belief I was telling myself, but I wanted to create a new belief. And the belief that I made was like, every time I'm drinking alcohol, I'm going backwards in life. And I would tell myself that every day for like, honestly, I told myself that every day for like 2 months, but it stuck with me. So I'm curious if there's a belief that you tell yourself now, or that you have, that kind of helps you stay sober. And you've been sober for 17 years, so I'm very curious about that.
Well, the first promise that was given to me in recovery was hang around here long enough and you'll be more like the person God made you to be. If somebody's listening that's not into God and all this. Sorry, that was the words that were used. So that's what you get to hear today. And I liked it because, yeah, as much as it was saying that I had messed up my life and I'd pissed away all the good opportunities in my life and stuff, that, yeah, I'd like a fresh start. I'd really like a new beginning in stuff. And if there was a few simple things that I did with conviction and stuff, that my potential could be actualized and realized and stuff. So initially, though, it was, again, very much about external stuff, that if I did this, I could be smart, strong, successful, prove to the world. Again, I still was carrying these insecurities. I could prove to the world that I was somebody. If I could just make enough money or have a big enough house or whatever and stuff. Being more like the person I was born to be is much more about an inner state of being. Okay. I don't believe anybody was born to carry around shame, is probably the biggest regrets, resentments, all those kind of head trips that we carry. But most of all, shame, feeling that you are less than others. Okay. Yeah. I may have less money than you. Okay. I may rent a house instead, own a big fancy mansion and all this kind of stuff, but our innate state of being, who we are underneath all these thoughts and feelings and such, all men are created equal. Okay. Well, women too. All humans are created equal and stuff. So my basic belief is, again, how now this for me is, I have been unlearning all this stuff that has been holding back from my potential. I have no idea how this is going to manifest. Will I be, I don't know, rich and famous on the cover of magazines, all that kind of stuff, which, hey, if that's what's in store in the future and stuff, that's just the journey and stuff. I'm not going to get too attached to it or fight it and all this kind of stuff. I show up the best man I can be today. But really who I am, again, if I don't make the covers of magazine, if nobody praises me, okay, I lose everything. Okay, total bankruptcy, and I'm living in the, sleeping in the backseat of my car and stuff. If I can, again, unlearn all the thoughts that have been causing me more harm than good, if I could unlearn everything that's been at the root of this, again, basically what I'm been ashamed of, that I was less than the person I thought I should have been, then I have the freedom to move through life and have fun and do cool things with cool people. Okay. I love people. I love seeing aspects in people that makes them special. I think everybody has gifts and talents that make the world a better place, even if it's just for 30 seconds in a conversation. I am glad I got a chance to talk with them. I'm really glad we've been talking today, Marcos. This has been awesome.
Same.
This is the best way I could have spent the last hour of the day. So that's really kind of my belief system, is that, yeah, it is kind of a mindset thing and stuff. But yeah, being more like the person I was born to be is unlearning everything that's been holding me back from enjoying life.
Okay. No, I like that. I like that a lot. Selfish question. What was the best thing you learned from John Whiting?
Well, I think it's because what I've touched on here is the neutralizing of the charges.
Okay.
So,
yep, same. I can agree.
Again, for those who don't know, and I think Marcos won't necessarily brag, but that is an accomplishment of clearing 500 charges. Okay, that's not everyone who has done and stuff. That shows a commitment to doing this nature of this work. And again, when I'm talking about clearing the charges here, is that, again, it's the aversions or the attachments that we see something that we're totally repulsed by or we're totally obsessed over and such. And if we can and again, these things are really important to us, and there's emotional charges to things that are really important to us. If we can take that charge and dissipate it to the point where it has less influence over us, we can move through life in a way that we've talked about in stuff, is we can discern instead of necessarily react. Okay. We can go through life with a higher state of wisdom. Or when we're not so emotional about things, we can make better choices. It's really that simple. Okay. If you've ever seen anybody in the middle of an heated argument and stuff, say things they regret, do things they regret and stuff, it was all because it was emotions were driving this behavior.
Yep.
Versus, I guess a Zen monk might be the opposite of it. You look at a wise person all calm, cool, and collected and just kind of goes, yeah, maybe.
And I can attest to that. And even though you clear charges and you like, for instance, like you're going to start clearing charges and you become like 500 charges cleared, you still will have things come at you every single day, week, month that are going to add more charges. You're not done. Like you don't reach one level and you just are done with it for the rest of your life. You got to keep doing this literally every single week, month, year, because for instance, let's just say I still work at a bar job. And me and my boss got into it because over a confrontation. Well, he ended up, he wasn't yelling, but he was loud. He was not really, to me, I felt like, me personally, I'll just like say the charges that I felt. He wasn't like acknowledging how good of a job I was doing. He's like overlooking everything, wanting more work out of me, less pay, like same pay, more work. And it really built up a charge in me. I was really charged up. I'm gonna say I was like a 10. 1 out of 10, I was 10. And he came at me one day with just the most weirdest, like not weirdest, but the smallest issue, but made it a big issue, made it a very big issue. And he didn't yell, but he talked really loud and he was very like firm and direct and like, if you do this again, I'm going to have to get rid of you type deal over something I'm talking about very, very small. So even then, after clearing 500 charges, something like that can still put a charge, a charge, meaning like you want to react, you want to quit, you want to just leave that place, like screw them. I can do bigger and better things. So it's important because like if you don't have a way to do that and a model and a framework, something like that can cause you to go back and maybe want to drink or maybe make a irrational decision or do drugs or things like that. And if you're already doing them, it's gonna make you increase it. So I can attest that like no matter what, you're gonna need some kind of framework in your life, or you're gonna need a good support group or people to be around. Like you mentioned, like you're building a group where you're gonna be around other people who are pretty much going to the next level. And guess what? If you're around those kind of people, I mean, you're gonna have no choice but to go to the next level, or you'll just pretty much leave the group by yourself.
That's right. Yeah. And that's another thing that can be scary because the unknown, the new, again, we have no certainty. When we're going into this new lifestyle, we have, no idea who we're going to be hanging out with, what we're going to be doing. Will this be any fun? All we have can reference is the old behaviors and such. Will I be accepted by this higher level of performing people and stuff? Will I have anything to contribute in such? All those kind of fears and stuff. Those can be, again, is this tool that will remove all the charges, all those thoughts and stuff. It helps you feel safer in your human experience, that you're just like, no, because I realize the people I'm hanging around with and stuff, I have very little in common with them other than drinking and stuff. So yeah, I'm going to hang around people that I have, common interests in, that I don't know, I want to pursue. I've raced motorcycles and stuff. Certainly a lot of people that raced motorcycles would get high and stuff, but there's a lot of them, the high performers, the champions and stuff, you can't perform at the level of champions and be doing that kind of stuff. Used to be, but the level of excellence and stuff, it's just, so I can hang around with them and it's just, to them, it's just totally normal not to be drinking or smoking and stuff like that.
Yep.
And even though I may not necessarily be at the same level of athletic ability of him, we could share in the same kind of just the joy of riding motorcycles and some other things that we might be digging as well too. Personal development, all that kind of jazz. I could be around these people that, it's just easier to be around with these high performing people. And I like myself. I have greater self-esteem because I'm being the best version of myself today. I'm more investing than I am spending my energy. I'm investing in a better version. This is what I talked about earlier, the difference between immediate gratification versus long-term satisfaction. It might feel good to do something, again, that I'm calling self-destructive, whatever it may be. And why you would discern it was self-destructive is afterwards you would have regret. Wow, if I could take that back, I sure would. Very rarely when you're investing in yourself do you ever have regrets.
Very true.
Personally, myself,
yeah.
I can't think of a single. When I was very intentional about personal development, I've never regretted investing in a coaching program. I've never invested in the hours I've spent doing it. The dealing with the suckiness of failing, because improving is hard. I have failed so much, but as some people will point out, we learn more by our failures than by our successes. But you got to eventually have enough miles underneath your wheels to realize, that's just the way it is and stuff. You're going to have to suck. That's just the way the best of the best sucked it someday. Might be naturally gifted and talented that, Tom Brady being the greatest quarterback of all time and stuff. I am pretty sure there's days that Tom Brady and stuff wanted to give up because that's just the way it is when you're excelling.
I like that. And someone, I think, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Josh Forty, but he did mention Tom Brady in one of his webinars. He basically said, Tom Brady sucks. He really does. But he's very good at getting the ball out. He's not a good runner. He's not a good, he can't, juke you around and, dodge you. But the one thing he's good at is reading the field and getting you the ball. So you don't have to be good. Like you said, you don't got to be good at everything. Most people think they got to be good at everything. You have to be good at everything. And it's not the case.
Well, and my criteria of proclaiming them that is because he's won more Super Bowls than any other quarterback.
Yep.
Okay. Now, again, that was a team sport and all this kind of stuff, but the quarterback, at least my understanding and stuff, again, he's leading that team on the field. When the offensive team is on the field, he is the one that is leading them. They're all working together for a common goal. So, he may not be the best runner. He don't need to be the best runner. He's got 3 other guys behind him that are really, really good runners and really good blockers in front of him and stuff. He knows his gifts and talents. He's focusing on it. He's always, I forget, Kaizen or whatever. There's a Japanese word and stuff about being perpetually a student and always improving. That you never graduate in life. And that's what I feel is just this lifestyle. Just living life. It don't necessarily need to be particularly in a coaching program and stuff. Life can teach me as well. But that's the thing is relationships. When I can see similarities instead of differences, I'm not judging you. I'm looking at what assets and abilities you have and what I have as well within you. I'm learning all kinds of cool things every day. So anyway, we've been going on for a little while. I think I'm starting to ramble, Marcos. So
no, man, you're good. No, it's. I think it's a good time to come to an end. Where can people find you? What's the best place for the audience to find you, especially if they want to learn more and are interested in what you had to say?
Yeah, I have the Easier Ways group on Facebook. As I said, I'm launching and stuff. When this gets published or somebody listens to this a couple months down the road and stuff, maybe you can update it and stuff. But right now, the Facebook group, just Easier Ways.
Okay, Easier
Shortcuts.
Ways.
Solutions and shortcuts for an easier life is like the subheading on it.
Okay,
so
perfect.
That's the best way.
Perfect. I will put that link in the description of the YouTube video so it's easier for people to find it.
Thank you.